Yeah.
We thought last week's top 25 was pretty wild. We saw a handful of upsets in week 4. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 teams were then added to the AP poll, and there were just so many shakeups that we had to address. Well, then week 5 came along, and as we've seen all year in the world of college football, week 5 outdid the previous week. We saw 8 teams lose in the top 25 from this past weekend. 6 of those 8 teams fell to unranked opponents. And out of those 8 teams that lost, only 3 remain in this week's top 25. And that is Auburn, who fell from number 7 to number 13. Number 9, Texas, falling all the way to 22. And Texas A&M falling from 13th to 21st. Only 3 of those 8 teams remain in the top 25. The remaining teams, Central Florida, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Pittsburgh, and Memphis, all falling out of the top 25 going into week 6. So there's so many major shakeups, so many surprises, so many things that we need to address. And like we always do here at the Gridiron Expert, we are here to break down this new set of rankings, something we will continue to do every single week until November, where we will then come out with our own set of rankings to go alongside the College Football Playoff Committee, a committee that we never, ever agree with. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Week 6 AP Top 25 poll. Remember, these are not our rankings. This is the AP poll, but we still have a lot of analysis to break down on these. So we mentioned a lot of changes. 8 teams in the top 25 lose. A lot of teams drop out, which means there's a lot of movement and a lot of teams that are now coming in. But the one good thing about this is that from now until the end of the season, we're going to see consistency. There's going to be no new surprises. Every conference is eligible to be ranked now, so we don't have to worry about the Big Ten and the Pac-12 jumping in and ruining everything. You look at the top 10 here, the ACC leads the way with the most teams in the top 10. They have 4 teams in the top 10. That's top-ranked Clemson, 5th-ranked Notre Dame. We are going to count them as an ACC program this year. 7th-ranked Miami, and 8th-ranked North Carolina. So the ACC, that's a pretty impressive feat. Not to mention they have Virginia Tech down here at number 19. A very impressive feat for a conference that many consider to be one of the weakest in the country back in 2019. The SEC right behind them, 3 teams in the top 10, all in a row. Number 2, Alabama, number 3, Georgia, and number 4, Florida. And that's where we'll start here. Last week, Florida and Georgia swapped spots. The Gators jumped up to number 3 after their win over Ole Miss, and Georgia fell to number 4 after that win over Arkansas. Now going into week 6, the opposite has happened. Georgia has retaken their throne, retaken their spot at number 3 after their dominating performance against Auburn, 27-6 against the Tigers. Florida dropping back down to number 4 after a 14-point victory against South Carolina. Style points certainly go to Georgia. The quality of opponent certainly goes to Georgia. Remember, Auburn was number 7 in the country when the 2 teams squared off in Athens this past Saturday. So that move for Georgia, extremely justified. No complaints there. Not good enough to jump Alabama and Clemson yet. No one's going to be able to do that until they really prove it or beat one of these 2 teams or one of those 2 teams falls. But I do agree with Georgia jumping back over the Gators after such an impressive victory last week against Auburn. Notre Dame coming in at number 5, Ohio State in at number 6. Not many too surprises there. And again, one thing you have to keep in mind is until these Big Ten and Pac-12 schools start to play, you're really not going to see many shifts in their rankings. They might move up a spot or 2, especially if teams ahead of them lose. But you're not going to really see any take massive jumps ahead, in my opinion. And I think even if they do, or even if teams ahead of them lose, you could see teams behind them jump those Big Ten and Pac-12 schools because, again, they haven't played anybody. Teams behind them have. And if they beat a quality opponent, they will jump over a team like Ohio State or Oregon or Penn State if they beat someone good enough and the Associated Press deems it, right to put them above them. And I think we're going to see that here in the upcoming weeks. Until the Big Ten and Pac-12 start to play, these teams will not move very much at all in the rankings. So Ohio State staying in at 6, Miami in at number 7, North Carolina jumping up 4 spots up to number 8 after their win against Boston College. Now that I think is a lot in part due to 2 top 10 teams losing last week. Number 7 Auburn, number 9 Texas. They both go down. So North Carolina, a very, very good team, benefited from that. They survived Boston College, defeating the Eagles 26-22. But now cracking the top 10 here, and they've got a big top 20 showdown this weekend as they're taking on Virginia Tech in at 19, and we'll touch on them in a second. Oklahoma State coming in at number 10. We didn't forget about Penn State, but again, one of those Big Ten teams that really isn't going to move too much in the rankings. So the Nittany Lions in at number 9. Oklahoma State rounding out the top 10 as the best Big 12 school as of right now. Highest ranked Big 12 school. Oklahoma, they're done. No college playoff for them, college football player for them, as they just fell to Iowa State. Texas, all the way down to number 22, following their loss to TCU. So Oklahoma State might be the Big 12's best chance at getting a team into the college football playoff. Iowa State is that outlier. The Cyclones win out, they have a legitimate chance. Oklahoma State moving up 7 spots to number 10 after their 40-point victory over Kansas. And keep in mind, they're doing all of this right now without their star quarterback and Spencer Sanders. They're doing it with Shane Illingsworth, who I thought has done a pretty dang good job in replacement of Sanders. Didn't look too good against Tulsa when he was thrust onto the scene, but since then has really filled the shoes of a starting quarterback for the Cowboys. So that's your top 10 here. Not many big discrepancies. I like it. I like the move of Georgia above Florida right now. Like Notre Dame up at number 5. And I really like Miami and North Carolina in at number 7 and number 8. Love seeing so many ACC teams in the top 10 right now. And remember, we've got a big top 10 showdown this week. Number 1 Clemson hosting number 7 Miami. That, of course, will, go ahead, spoiler alert, going to be our game of the week. So you don't want to miss our analysis on that coming out on Wednesday. But a big game there. I like this top 10 a lot right now. After that, you got Cincinnati. They are the highest ranked group of 5 team. This is significant because they were not the highest ranked group of 5 team last week. Remember, Central Florida was the 11th ranked team in the country last week. They fell at home to Tulsa. Somehow fell at home to Tulsa, who snapped the Knights' 21-game home winning streak. UCF nowhere to be found. They were 11th. They're out of the rankings now. So Cincinnati, the highest ranked group of 5 team in the country. We got SMU in at number 18 right behind them. 23rd Louisiana right behind them. So you've got 3 group of 5 teams in the top 25 right now. Cincinnati going to be the favorite to get that New Year's 6 bowl spot. But remember, they are in the same conference as SMU. So those 2 teams, I think, really going to be battling it out to be that highest ranked group of 5 conference champion and to earn that New Year's 6 bowl spot. So a huge, huge move for Cincinnati, getting to move up to number 11, right outside the top 10. Huge move for SMU as well, moving all the way up to 18th after not being ranked last week. Remember, we said we felt the Mustangs should have maybe been in at 25th, 24th. With their victory over Memphis, they proved they're legit. They're 4-0. 18th, a perfect spot for Shane Buechele, Sonny Dykes, and the Mustangs. Oregon, a Pac-12 team, not going to move too much there. Auburn dropping down 6 spots, as we mentioned, after falling 27-6 at Georgia. Now, that was to be expected. I know a lot of people wanted to pick Auburn as a trendy upset pick in that game, but we just didn't see it. We felt very confident that Georgia was going to take care of business, and they did. So Auburn, after not generating any offense whatsoever, getting outgained by over 200 yards in that game to the Bulldogs, they dropped 6 spots to 13th. And if they're not careful, could fall this Saturday against Arkansas, who just upset Mississippi State, forcing the Bulldogs to drop out of the rankings. Arkansas, very dangerous defense this season. Shut down Mike Leach and that air raid offense. For an Auburn offense that was lackluster last week against Georgia, if they don't fix things quickly, they could be in store for a tougher test than they were expecting when they face the Razorbacks on Saturday afternoon. Tennessee right behind Auburn at number 14. BYU and Tennessee, for that matter, are both moving up 7 spots. Tennessee was 21st last week. BYU was 22nd. They've both moved up 7 spots. Now, I want to start with Tennessee here. A couple weeks ago, the Volunteers were 16th. When the Big Ten, the Pac-12 teams got added, Tennessee dropped down to 21st, and we said that's more like it. We said, okay. Because we said Tennessee was not a top 20 team. We didn't think they were a top 15 team. So when they got dropped down to 21st, that to me seemed more like a better spot for them. I still don't think Tennessee's a top 15 team. And Volunteer fans hate me for it, criticize me for it. Prove to me that you're a top 15 team when you take on Georgia in Athens this Saturday. Even if you lose that game, if you give Georgia a fight, you will prove to me that you deserve this 14th ranked spot. But so far, Tennessee has defeated South Carolina only by 4, and they beat a very bad Missouri team. Took care of business, I believe it was 35-12. Now I get they can't help that. They're taking care of business the way they need to. But still, they are not a top 15 team, a top 14 team to me right now. They have a chance to prove that on Saturday against the Bulldogs. BYU, they are one of our teams trending up this past weekend. They've played 3 games and have outscored their 3 opponents 148-24. There's a very good chance that BYU finishes the season 10-0. But as we mentioned, will not have a chance at the college football playoff because their strength of schedule is so poor. But like Tennessee, they're taking care of business. You're not going to go out there and purposely lose a game. You can't help the opponents that you're given. So when you got a game, you go out there, you play it, you hope to win it, and BYU's doing that perfectly. And they're doing that in dominating fashion. So I like the Cougars moving up 7 spots from 22nd to 15th. No complaints there. Took easy care of Louisiana Tech this past weekend. So Kalani Sitake doing a good job. These two teams were going to meet up right now. Remember, BYU won last year. I might be picking BYU to win it again this year. No disrespect to Tennessee. I do think they're a good football team. They've won 8 straight games dating back to last season. But they haven't played anybody yet this season. Same can be said for BYU. But I think BYU's playing a little bit more physical right now. Wisconsin in at 16, another Big Ten team. Again, these guys we're not going to talk much on because they're not going to move that much. LSU in at number 17, moving up a few spots. Remember, they fell from 6th, I think it was to 20th. They fell pretty dang far following their loss to Mississippi State in Week 1. They went on the road, took easy care of Vanderbilt, as we all expected. A good bounce-back game for the Tigers, and they are now in at number 17, moving up a few spots now. So 17th for the Tigers, the reigning national champions. SMU, as we mentioned, going from unranked to 18th, following that victory over what was then number 25 Memphis. And then you've got Virginia Tech in here at number 19. And this is another team that I'm very excited to see in the rankings. Last week, they were right on the outside looking in, and we said, where's Virginia Tech? They were ranked prior to the Big Ten and the Pac-12 being thrown in there. So when they got thrown in, it booted the Hokies out. And I was furious about that because they beat North Carolina State, who just beat Pittsburgh, I should add. They beat them pretty dang well, 21 points, I believe, without 23 players, all out due to coronavirus. They then just beat Duke, down 21 players, still because of coronavirus, and that win, obviously good enough to propel them from unranked to 19th, where they belong. I believe they were a top 20 team last week. They still, to me, even though the Duke game should have probably been won by more, they still, to me, are a top 20 team. And a lot of credit to Justin Fuente and his squad for getting the job done with being as shorthanded as they are. So many players down, so many coaches down, including their new defensive coordinator and Justin Hamilton. They're still getting the wins left and right, and now have a huge matchup, as we mentioned, against North Carolina, the 8th-ranked team in the country. That game going to be played in Chapel Hill. So very excited for Virginia Tech. Well-deserved spot for them. Michigan at 20. Texas A&M and Texas at 21 and 22. And I know for a fact that the AP poll did that on purpose. I don't have an issue with it, but the AP poll tends to do that quite a bit, where they put rivals or teams within the same conference back-to-back, or sometimes back-to-back-to-back. 3 straight SEC teams here in Bama, Georgia, Florida. Rightfully deserved. These are 3 of the top 5 teams in the country, without a doubt. But it's funny how they're 3 in a row. Funny how big rivals in Texas A&M and Texas are back-to-back here. So I do look at that sometimes, and you know it's on purpose, but it's always just in good fun. A&M dropping from 13th to 21st after their loss at Alabama. Again, to be expected, fell by 28. So 8 spots after such a big beatdown, not too bad for the Aggies. Texas dropping from 9th to 22nd. They were one of the biggest fallers of the week. Actually, they were the biggest faller out of the remaining teams that are ranked. 9th to 22nd, 13 spots, losing at home 33-31 to TCU. Just unacceptable if you're a Longhorns fan. Unacceptable for Texas as a whole. You've got the talent, you've got the coaches to win these games, and you cannot lose these games at home, of all places. So just embarrassing for Tom Herman and for Sam Ehlinger, and I feel for that quarterback, a guy that has put his heart and soul into this football team, and yet has nobody around him to help him get the wins and get Texas back to where they need to be. They thought they were back last year, lackluster 8-win season. Thought this could be the year after everything that's been going on, they make the college football playoff. They narrowly escaped Texas Tech. Their luck runs out at home to TCU. They're 22nd and now have a very lackluster game against Oklahoma coming up on Saturday. Louisiana and Iowa State, 23rd and 24th. I look at this and it makes sense because Louisiana defeated Iowa State in that season opener, right? So the Raging Cajuns go into Ames, defeat Iowa State. So it makes sense that Louisiana is ranked above the Cyclones. But I don't like Iowa State being as low as they are at 24th. I know that loss to Louisiana was bad, but this is a Raging Cajuns team that's 3-0 and is pretty dang good and can beat or hang with a handful of these teams in the top 25. Iowa State took down TCU last week, on the road I should add. That win looking a lot better now because they just beat Texas. And then went back home and took down what was then number 18 Oklahoma in Ames. Their first win at home against Oklahoma since 1960. And they just barely get back into the top 25. To me, I know Iowa State, again, I think the AP poll's holding that Louisiana loss against them. But Iowa State to me is at least a top 20 team. I would put them above Louisiana, even though they lost to them. I would certainly put them above Texas and Texas A&M, and maybe even over Michigan, just because the Wolverines haven't played yet. And maybe I'm jumping on the Iowa State train too early here. But to me, those are two very impressive victories for the Cyclones after such a poor start, a poor first game. That to me shows the culture in Ames, shows the talent that they have in Ames, and shows that these guys are legitimate Big 12 title contenders. So I'd move them up from 24th to at least 21st, but to me, I'd probably put them at 20th. But regardless, Cyclones are back in the top 25. They belong there. They just cannot afford a letdown game this week as they take on Texas Tech. And then finally, Minnesota coming in at number 25. This is a team, again, that just got Rashad Bateman back. A big-time wide receiver, a guy that they needed if they wanted to try to make a run at a Big Ten title in 2020. They cracked the top 25, and for some people it doesn't make sense because, again, Minnesota, a Big Ten team. They haven't played yet, so why are they just cracking the top 25? Well, again, when the Big Ten and Pac-12 teams were ranked last week, we were shocked that Minnesota was nowhere to be found. This is an 11-win Golden Gophers team from last year, and they returned a lot of talent from that 11-win team, and they weren't even a top 25 team according to the AP poll. That was ridiculous. So a 25 spot for them, very well deserved, maybe could be a little higher in my opinion based on what PJ Fleck has going into this season. But nonetheless, Minnesota at 25, and they will probably stay there. They will probably stay there or move up a few spots. I can't imagine that the Golden Gophers are going to drop out of the top 25 between now and when they start Big Ten Conference play unless something crazy happens and some team that is not ranked right now beats some teams and deserves to get ahead of them. Again, these Big Ten teams will not move that much. Maybe a spot or two up or down, but you won't see any drastic movements for them, and no drastic movements for Oregon either, a Pac-12 team. Don't want to forget about them. But no drastic moves for them over these next few weeks until they start playing football. So there you have it, guys, your top 25 poll going into Week 6. So many changes across the board, and we're going to have a lot more coming in Week 7. You've got some big top 25 matchups coming your way this weekend. Number 4, Florida, going to College Station to take on number 21, Texas A&M. You've got Virginia Tech and North Carolina, number 19 versus number 8. Tennessee at Georgia, number 14 versus number 3. And then, of course, the big one, Miami at Clemson, number 7 at number 1. So you are guaranteed to get at least one top 10 team that will go down in Week 6? Will it be the top-ranked team in the country, or will it be the Hurricanes, who I think have surprised everybody so far in 2020? But regardless, lots of teams are going to lose. You've got 4 big ranked versus ranked matchups, but I can promise you there's going to be more than just 4 ranked teams that go down this week. And we're going to be right back here, same time, same place, next week to break down another hectic week of college football and another hectic shakeup in the AP Top 25 poll. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in that description below. You can follow us on our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can sign up for our newsletter and for our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. You can also follow us on Patreon for some exclusive content over there. And of course, use our promo code GRIDIRON over on betnow.eu for all of your betting needs. A lot of these games I'm going to be betting on, and I know you should be too, for another fantastic and hectic week of college football. So do not miss out on any of those offers and any of that content, all down in the description below. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.